Guibh Galera Cordia August Táfáilte Road. Welcome to Be My Guest with me, Mary Honan, on Lear Media TV, supporting the Samaritans, Limerick and Tipperary. And my absolutely spectacularly amazing guest today is the wonderful Professor Cathy LeBlanc, all the way from France, otherwise known as my friend Cathy. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you so much, Mary. It's such a pleasure to see you again. And thank you very much to invite me for your talk. You look splendid.
The same to you. I've never seen you with your hair down. It's always tied back.
Yeah, that's because of the COVID.
How are things in France right now? Is the country opening up?
No, not really. Little by little, all the little departments, the administrative divisions are putting more restrictions. And so we have to be at home for 7 in the evening, for example. We are not allowed to travel from a department to the other. We can go and visit somebody who is in a home, for example, 200 kilometers far, but with a paper and everything, the stamp, an email from the home. So restrictions are very much present, and it makes people aggressive, a little bit annoyed and ill at ease. It has never happened. Even people here, there are people who knew the war. The war was terrible in the north of France, lots of boomings and so on.
Restrictions are terrible.
Yeah, but they've never known such a restriction. Even they say, even during the war, they could go out of their home, and now they cannot.
During the war, and during any war, during World War One as well, you knew your enemy, you saw your enemy, you could fight from your enemy. This is an enemy that you don't, that's invisible, and that you're told so many different contradicting views about, everything contradicts it. You can go into a supermarket and you're okay, but you can't go into a small shop, or you can't go past 5 kilometers, but you can go to here in this country, but you can go 4 kilometers and you're okay. And it's almost like, well, how intelligent is the virus that it knows 4 kilometers from 5 kilometers from 6 kilometers, or it knows if you're in by 7 o'clock at night, you're okay. But if you're out until 7:30, you're going to be hit by COVID. None of it's making sense. And that's what's causing a lot of anger among people.
Yes, here anger is present as well. And I really worry for the vision of the other that it is developing. The other means contagion. It's not the other one that I love and by whom I'm loved, but this is a possible risk. And I'm really afraid that it changed people's mind towards the other. It comes in intimate things. In France, I remember very well the President Macron saying, "Don't kiss anymore." And in France, we kiss a lot, 4 times.
Isn't enough. In this country, you're lucky if you get 1.
Yeah. So it's coming in our intimacy on things that inner in ourselves, and also in very emotional sphere, in the way we entertain relations with the other. And I'm afraid all these regulations might change things on the long run, that people cannot be so close, or
that's what I'm worried about, that we are making others out of so-called out of our friends and out of family members, and that you are actually seeing people as potential virus carriers rather than
Yes,
loved ones and family members and friends.
yes.
And that people who are reluctant to hug anyway at the best of times won't hug
Mm.
at all
No,
post COVID, because you know they'll become so afraid. That's what I'm worried about, is that they'll become so afraid that the other
yes.
person will give them germs, that we'll become a very distant society even amongst our friends.
Exactly, exactly. There are two important things. First of all, when you touch somebody, there's an hormone that is liberated in your body that's called oxytocin,
Oxytocin.
and it's the hormone of trust and love, any kind of love, spiritual, charnel, any kind of love. And this hormone is not liberated anymore because we don't touch each other. It's really a social factor. And then with the mask, we have to carry mask all the time. That makes that you don't read people's emotion on their face. So you don't exercise the human things that is in you. You don't improve it.
Exactly.
You don't enrich it by this reading of people's face. And I really, really worry about that. And for children as well, children who just see face, covered face, they don't learn about humanity.
They don't learn about expression either, or how a
No,
baby learns from the moment, almost from the womb, how to express through their mother, how to express, how to they look into their mother's and father's eyes or people's eyes, and they see smiling eyes or they see sadness, and they mimic that. But if their only or their first connection with the world is to see a mask and not be able to see that visual expression on people's faces, it's going to affect them, because from 0 to 4 is the most impressionable and malleable ages for children. They learn so much in those 4 years. And if they can't learn to smile because they don't see stranger smiles, it's one thing seeing a parent smile, it's another thing seeing a total stranger smile to them. And if they're not able to see that total stranger smiling because then they're, it's a stunting that we've never seen the likes of, or the world has never seen really the likes of, certainly not in the wars. You knew your enemy, you could see your enemy. They were dressed in a Nazi uniform, or they were dressed in a British uniform if you were on the Nazi side, but they or an American uniform, or what, an Allied soldier uniform. But now you can't see it, and
mm.
it becomes. And you're in the Department of Philosophy in the Catholic University of Lille.
Yes,
How is
theology and philosophy. I'm a philosopher for theologians, which is very interesting.
theologian and a philosopher? How did you get interested in theology, number one? And I know that when you do a PhD, all the PhDs in the humanities tend to be PhD in philosophy. Your subject area might be theology. In my case, it was English literature. But how did you get interested in those subjects? Because I know you're a very fine concert pianist.
Ah, yeah. Well, the piano was the first thing I learned. I was 5 years old, and my mother's friend used to teach me because she saw I was interesting. I was interested, so she started to teach me, and then my parents saw that I really had an interest, so they paid for a good professor, and he used to come at home, and he was a concert man as well, and spoke and all really lots of languages. So sometimes he used to speak English or German or Italian. All the nuances he used to voice them in Italian. That was allegro, allegretto.
That's where your love of languages came from, because
Yes.
your English is so perfect. I mean,
Oh,
you translate my work all the time for me, and your English is so good. It's exceptionally good. Do you know? And your English writing, the written English, but you also speak other languages besides French. And is that where your love of language came from?
I'm sure it comes from there, because also it used to make me work on imagination, imagine the world of the pieces I used to play, and imitate the emotions. So I'm sure that my love for languages come from there. Also, my grandparents used to speak the dialect. Here there is a dialect in the north of France called ch'ti. That's a
Steve.
funny way to say ch'ti. So um, my grandfather would only speak that dialect. That's a bad French. That he was a miner. And the miners used to speak that
My
rough French.
grandfather, my grandfather was a miner. That's one of the things that connected me to you was the day of my, that you were the external examiner for my PhD. That's how we got to know each other. And when
Yes.
I walked in and I saw this, I'll never forget it, Kathy, and I'll never forget you for it. When I saw this big smile on your face,
Oh,
I actually feel like getting emotional right now, even thinking about it. You're so pent up with stress outside the door, and you walk in and you see this huge smile, and you stood up and you walked over, shook hands, and hugged me. And I thought, oh my God, everything that I had been practicing to say outside was gone out of my. And then when you said your grandfather was a miner, and you suggested I take it in the direction work looking at how the children had been treated um, uh, during the Victorian times, and how they and during the war, and now, and I thought, oh, my grandfather. So that connection was there, that we both
yes.
had grandfathers who were miners.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your grandfather was in the Russian resistance, am I right?
No, in
Somebody belonging to you.
the French resistance, but he was a communist.
That's where I thought. Yeah, he was a communist in the
At that
French.
time, what did it mean? At that time, that meant working like a slave from morning to evening, from to night, being treated like an animal,
Mhm.
being receiving coup, receiving bad treatments. And so all those men and women got organized. And being a communist meant uh, um, wanting a claim for equality, for recognizing. That was their fight.
Yeah,
And there was a solidarity among us, among them, and that was really very, very beautiful. That's not the cliche when you say communist. Oh no, that's an existential position. That's a fight. That was a fight for life for them, with the ideology that everybody is equal. And
yeah.
it was.
Sadly, we're not. Sadly, everyone isn't equal. Isn't it? Wasn't it
No,
George Orwell that said some are more equal than others? Was it George Orwell that said some
exactly.
people are more equal than others in their own views? When it comes down to it, we come into the world the same. We go out of the world the same. There's no division between us. But how we live our lives, I don't think people see each other as the same. There's this hierarchy that we live by. But getting back to the music, you loved to feel the music and to get into the heart of it.
Yes, yes, definitely to enter the world and understand the world. And that's what little by little drove me to hermeneutics. Hermeneutics in philosophy, that's the science of interpretation. And when you are a musician, you have to interpret, to question the piece you're going to play. In what condition was that piece written, or this other piece written? I made lectures on Chopin, and a prelude, when you hear repeated note and repeated, and it's a syndrome of repetition. It's the trauma in Chopin was suffering, and you can perceive it in his work, and you have to think of it when you play. You cannot play Chopin and being no, that's, you have to put yourself in the mood, try to imitate what he must have felt at a given moment. And that's what I've learned with that professor who was really a very, very good professor. I was very lucky to be able to teach with him, to
But do you
learn
think,
with him.
Cathy, as well, that there's well, there has to be, and there is, I know it's probably a leading question, but the fact that you were so musical, that you had a musical ear, also translated into your ability to pick up languages.
Yes.
I'm musical. I could pick up a song, and I know if somebody is out of tune, even fractionally. I've always had a musical ear, so languages, the pronunciation of French, I'd be fluent in, but not the grammar. And I need to actually, before I start confidently speaking it. Do you think that the fact that you had a musical ear helped you?
Definitely, yes, because well, for two reasons. Also, because I also learned the flute, the side flute, and my book, the handbook, was in 4 languages. So when there was a page with all the notes and the explanations beside in 4 languages. So I was young when I learned the flute. I was 6 years old. I was beginning to read and write, and wow, I saw all those words in other languages, and I tried to see what correspond to what. What is that word in Italian, in German, in English? And that was a game. So it really gave me a taste for languages. Yes, and it's there's a bound, and the musical education also works you here. It improves your the way you perceive things. It improves your sensitivity. So,
Do you find now that it's an advantage having, well, it's obviously an advantage having 4 languages and being able to speak 4 languages, but do you find that it's a huge advantage in COVID, and it was during complete lockdown, to be able to play, to be able to take yourself out of the present and immerse yourself in someone else's present for a time, and then that it's therapeutic for you
yeah,
being able to play?
definitely, it is a door that you can open, and you're outside when you play the music. You're outside. Uh, but my well, for me, the fact of being confined has not been very difficult, because I've got lots of students, and I meet lots of students through Zoom, and I worry for my students a lot. So I was all the time with them, trying to explain the class, trying to receive them for a meeting, discuss the class or their life, be there for a contact. So I was, and I am very, very active with my students and my research. And I meet lots of people by Zoom, or even in the street. When I go out, I see my neighbor, and we speak a lot together. So it's okay. I don't have to complain. I really don't have to complain.
Yeah, but you see yourself there, creative people. I was speaking about that to somebody else there recently. When you're a creative person, you're able to adapt. you're able to,
Yes.
in your case, go into another world through your music or through your writing or through your classes. But people who aren't as adaptable, people who maybe have worked all their lives in offices, who would never consider that they have a creative bone in their body, must find it. People who are always around big families. I have a small family. It's just me, so I'm used to my own company. You're used to your own company for the most part. But people who are used to having lots of brothers and sisters, and seeing and lots of friends, people who have always needed to get out of the house, must feel very trapped now.
Yes. Yes.
Especially here in
Definitely.
Ireland, where you're in stage 5 lockdown, which is severe. We have the longest lockdown in Europe here in Ireland.
Yeah.
And it's starting to get to people now. But Cathy, what was your progress into the did you do your master's and PhD in the Catholic University of Lille?
No, I studied, well, I wanted to study English and philosophy, but you have to make one or the other in France. At that time, you could not put them together because that was too many hours of classes and that was not possible to arrange the exams. So I first studied English and made my master in American linguistics with I wrote my research on E.E. Cummings.
Okay.
And then I made I found a job quite easily at the university because they wanted somebody who could teach English to musicians, to students in music.
Okay.
And I could explain everything, all the technical language, and make a good class on that. So I found a job there. And with that job, I started my study in philosophy. And I made all my study in philosophy, and that was in the public University of Lille. I studied 1 year in Colchester University as well, linguistics.
Okay.
And then I had to find somebody for my doctorate thesis. So I found really a very, very good specialist. And I wrote my thesis on Heidegger because I wanted to question all the existential things in Paris, in the Catholic Institute of Paris. And it was really brilliant. And then I made the postdoc. And I found a job in the Catholic Institute in Lille.
It's a magnificent college. I mean,
yes.
You know, every time I go there, every year I go there, I take photographs as if it was going to change from the previous year. But the stonework is just, and it's very, very specific to Lille. It's very different from the rest of France. I think your background has completely changed. You notice that? Oh, look at it. Yeah. My glasses. I have to put my glasses on to see that. Look, the architecture is just, I just think it's breathtaking. And it makes me homesick now because France is my spiritual home. Ever since the first day I set foot in France, I've always felt this connection to it. No idea why, but when I went to Lille, I was just like so taken by the red brick. It's an unusual shade of red. It's not like the red we have in this country, which is predominantly Georgian red. Mm-hmm. It's a kind of a pinky red.
Yes, it depends how they are cooked, how the bricks are cooked, and the kind of sand that is used to make them.
It's absolutely, it's breathtaking. And I keep on photographing. The only thing is I always have difficulty with the ID. Well, all of us do when we're trying to go in. We're all there and it just won't let us in. And we're all trying to dodge it in with the only person who can actually get through the machine. you'd see two people running in to try and get through. So funny when that happens, but it's fabulous, you know. It's
Yes, it was made after Oxford. The Catholic University in Lille was built at the end of the 19th century in 1875. And that was an order by two brothers, two industrials, the Vaux brothers, and they wanted a university in Lille. And they paid for it. And they wanted it to be built after Oxford University. So that's the architecture. That's just behind me. That's
you can see the similarity between it and Oxford.
Yes.
Not that I was never in Oxford, but from images of it, it's just absolutely spectacular. But how, you know, has anybody gone back to the college now at the moment, or is
No,
everyone
it has
still
been
out?
closed for almost 1 year now. So I'm just teaching from home. It's quite comfortable, actually.
Yeah, but are we becoming? I'm worried that we're becoming institutionalized, and that somebody mentioned on a site I was on yesterday, that it's almost like the Stockholm syndrome, where we're getting quite comfortable with being locked up, and are we going to start using excuses and saying, well, we don't need to go to work, we can work from home, or employers will start saying, we don't need to be renting offices, or the college could say, sure, why do we need to open up the college again? Can't you all work from home?
Exactly. That's a risk. That's a big risk. Yeah.
And with
Oh,
that comes distancing from humanity, and we become insular. We need human beings to survive.
yes. Yeah. Um, well, the Zoom does not replace the physical exchange. That's sure. Um, when you're with the person, there are things that happen that do not happen in Zoom. It's very difficult to teach through Zoom because when you are in front of people, you can sort of carry them. I don't know how to describe it, but when
Yeah.
I'm in front of my students, I can carry them. But now I cannot do that with the numerical things, with the screen, and I cannot carry them. So it's quite strange. I don't know what I have to touch, what I have to grasp.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to replace the human contact. It's very difficult to replace being in the same room as another human being, engaging with them in a way that you can't possibly engage when you're sitting there. I'm sitting here. We're just talking to each other on a one-to-one basis, but there, you know, that the actual physicality of being inside the same room and being potentially able to go over and give somebody a hug or have a photograph taken with them or whatever. I'm thinking of the event that you organize every year. And I was fortunate. I was blown away when the first time I met you at my uh, doctorate defense, and you invited me to the Catholic University of Lille to speak. And you know, I'm still the only one that's speaking in English because I'm so afraid to actually speak because my grammar is so bad in French. But I'll get it. And uh, you organize this conference. It's the colloque, um, to it's just my car thing there for my car bleeping. You organize that every year. And tell the listeners about that. Why did you feel that there was a need? What interested you in the Holocaust to start? When you had done your master's in English and your PhD in philosophy and that, and you're a theologian, what drew you to the Holocaust and to organize this event every year for academics and for people working in the area of Holocaust research to come and talk about their chosen subject? You always choose a different topic every year to look at, and it runs for 3 days in March. This year we had it on Zoom, and I did stay for every single talk, because I was hoping to soak up all the language, and that something would start making sense to me. But when did you get interested in the Holocaust?
Oh, well, first of all, we spoke of my grandfather, and he was a resistant. He organized a whole network of resistance here in the north of France. So when I was a little girl, I often heard him speak of that and why he did that. So, but then I forgot, and I think I did not realize what that meant, and that my grandfather did something like that, and other people not. But I was always interested in injustice, people being badly treated or tortured. Yeah. And one day, a student came to see me, and he asked me if I could translate a book into French. That was a book about Mauthausen camp, Gusen camp.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I have to see the book. And I could not say no, of course. And I saw the book and I said, okay, I'm going to see what I can do. And I started the translation. And he told the association that I was okay for the job. And the association, Buchenwald Association, called me and asked me if I could be the translator of an old survivor, an old Canadian survivor called Headquarter Edwards. I said, yes, of course, great. And so I went there to the Congress, and there was Ed. He was brilliant, Ed. And I translated all that he said, and his stay in Buchenwald camp. Although he was a prisoner of war, there was a violation of the Geneva's Convention. No? And I really took a great interest in that. And so I thought I could organize something in my university. And Dominique Durand, the president of the association, said, you could speak of forgiveness here with the theologians. I am not a theologian, I'm just a philosopher. But there are many things in common. You could speak of forgiveness. Okay, I'm going to try and organize a symposium on forgiveness in the context of deportation. And then I thought that would be really interesting to have a symposium every year, a thorough study on a theme, specific theme. That's what we did. There was forgiveness, fraternity, brotherhood in the context of deportation, the body, writing, the word, the speech, language in the context of the deportation, justice, religion, humanity, and this year that was memory. And that's very interesting because all the group is working every year, and it makes a real team. And it seems everybody is connected because when we meet every year, there are so many connections, so many game of mirrors.
And everyone is from different countries. I mean,
Yes.
France, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, Austria,
United States.
Ireland, and there's one particular core group who are kind of there every single year, core group of us every year, and it's like meeting friends.
Yes.
And
Yes.
as yet, I'm looking at them and smile. I'm like the baby smiling at people without the mask, and I understand most of what they're saying, but I'm afraid of my life to say anything in case I'll make a fool of myself.
Oh no, you never make a fool of yourself, and your job, what you do, is really very, very, very valuable and beautiful. And yes, there are people from everywhere. Paul was there last week, and Paul is from the United States. That means that he was there as it was 1 o'clock in the morning.
I know.
So it's really, I also have that feeling that it's a great family. It's like my family.
Yeah, I know it sounds probably don't know, but I look on you all now, this little group that we have together as family. Do you know, because it's 5 years. This is the 5th year think I've been at it, and it's just like meeting up with family members who've all lived in different countries all over the world. Do you know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
all speaking different languages, but yet we all speak the language of tolerance
Exactly. That's
and
exactly
unity.
that. Mhm. Yes. Yes, definitely. And there's so much benevolence, so much love also.
Yeah,
Um, and it's always a great pleasure to gather every year and meet in the restaurants in Lille in the evening.
yeah. I was
And
going to say, and lots of food eating, and lots of laughing, and 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 what was I going to say? How difficult was it this year for you?
well, last
That
year,
with
I didn't manage to make it because I organized it, and
it was
Paul
cancelled.
had taken his ticket from the States, and everybody had a ticket, a plane ticket. Oh, I said, gosh, and my university forbid me to organize it on the spot. So I had to cancel everything, and I didn't know how to organize. So I decided to publish the book, to gather all the papers and publish the book. So I'm still waiting for it because all the job is done. I've corrected all the papers
Necessary,
and
correct.
articles, and I'm really waiting. My publisher is late. I'm going to give a good phone call, but it's
He's
going to
lovely.
be
Isn't that the gentleman that's always there with his wife?
yes, yes. Uh, um, well, it will come soon. So that's called the
I'll have
Humanity.
I'll have my piece published in French.
Yes,
That might actually, even reading that and knowing what might actually help my French as well.
yes, yes, definitely. Yeah, and this year we managed to do it with Zoom, so that was okay. Everything went well. I recorded the symposium, and I would like to gather all the papers quite soon, so as to be able to publish it.
Yeah.
So it's okay. It's okay. Things the work is going on. Maybe we could not see each other more than that, but still we were together. We worked together, and I think we have to be happy with that. No? The work
Yeah.
is going on. The work of memory, the work of reflection, the thinking for prevention of genocide is going on. So we should be happy with what we
I'm
have.
interviewing a woman tomorrow. I was to interview her this morning, but she didn't feel well. She's living in Geneva, and she's the lawyer at the UN for the High Commissioner of the United Nations, and she's also a whistleblower. So she has actually released all the letters and that, and tapes, say that the United Nations have been for years giving China the names of Uyghur dissidents, Uyghur Chinese dissidents,
Oh
or
yes.
Uyghur Muslims, as well as Tibetans, and as well as uh, uh, Hong Kongers, to the Chinese government ahead of time when they're supposed to be turning up to speak in opposition to the government. And many of them are being persecuted and put into concentration camps, and their families are and killed, or they're vanished.
Yes.
And I'm thinking to myself, have we learned anything at all? Has the world learned even a fraction about complicity, about silence, about reticence, about the horrors of trying to change a person, of trying to imprison a person for their having a different view? Have we learned anything, Cathy?
I don't know. It's as if the history was repeating all over again. It's very strange, but and I'm not sure that the lesson of the war has been learned, has been is still vivid, and I really worry, and I work also on the kind of knowledge. What kind of knowledge can we give the young generations from the war, from the concentration camps, so as to prevent them to become perpetrators, so as to push them towards tolerance and love of the other? So that's a big question.
And I mean, this re-education camps that they have, that apparently in China, that's pretty grotesquely worrying also, that people would try and imprison children, imprison human beings at any
Yes.
age, and try and refocus their way of thinking because it didn't fit
Yes.
the way that the government, and because it's coming down for it's government sanctioned, in the same way as Nazism was government sanctioned, it
Exactly.
makes it even more vile, because the illegal acts, the acts that we consider humanly repulsive, are legal because they're sanctioned by the government. They're legal,
Exactly.
but they're not moral.
That's exactly what that was the conclusion of the symposium on justice.
Yeah.
Justice in the context of deportation, justice in the context of Nazism was reversed down. They did the bad for people's good. That's everything is the
Yes,
way
yes.
round.
Instead of good, instead of something being good for you, it's bad for your good health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everything is reversed. That's fake. Hmm? We are not in the truth. We are in a manipulation of truth, in a manipulation of values. And totalitarian regimes push to intolerance.
Well, Cathy, what's particularly scary about, I suppose, Emma Riley is her name, and she works for the High Commissioner of the United Nations Human Rights, and she said that he was one of the people who was actually giving the names of these Uyghur Muslims. But what's scary is that this is an organization that is claiming to be an organization that's protecting the human rights of people, and whom we generally see as being the omnipotent place where and group of people who, if you're really in dire straits, you go to them and they see justice as being done. They're the scales of justice, but they're actually tipping the scales of justice away from defending, if this is true, away from defending the very people they're supposed to be defending. And that makes, and the fact then that they are immune from prosecution, they have diplomatic immunity, means that there's very little comeback for people like Emma Riley, who is trying to sue them. So she has to go through other ways of bringing the case forward, because they don't really have, they're diplomatically immune to any crime.
Yeah.
And that's pretty scary when an organization that you're supposed to trust is working against you.
Yeah. Well, that's also the problem of companies of security in Syria, in Iraq. I've written an article about that, and they've got an impunity that's incredible. The impunity they've got, they can do anything because it's covered by the will to re-establish the law or order. That they can do anything. They killed civilians. Impunity is very important. Impunities, and the Chinese make everything in impunity towards the Uyghur, and it's.
And apparently, from what she says, the Chinese, they're giving this information to the Chinese because they don't want the Chinese to be on their bad side, if you like. They need the Chinese monetarily so much that they're willing to give just to be in the good graces. That's, I mean, surely an organization such as the UN, having learned so much from World War II, should be the arbiter or the balance between good and evil, the person that actually or the organization that is absolute in its efforts to try and bring about justice and truth. It shouldn't be concerned about whether it offends one particular member or not.
Yeah, I think the only solution is a diplomatic solution, and there has to be a strength, and people, the great countries, the continents have to gather around this question and make pressure on China so as to demand truth and to have measures. But it's a huge country, and there's no report. We've got very little information and very little freedom to intervene. So the only thing is economic pressure and change, but that's only be on the long run because we are dependent on China.
That's what I was just about to say. It's such a big country. It's such a gross, vast economy. Exactly. That countries are afraid to actually get on the wrong side of, and yet, something has to be done. Well, where to from here now for Cathy LeBlanc? What's creatively and academically?
What's next? You mean? What's next is well, the book on memory, And I also working on the body, the question of body in confinement. So I would like, I've written half of the book on that, and I would like to finish it and to also be very present to my students. But I also would like to go on playing the piano. Last year I played in a church.
Putting the music in during this show.
Uh,
You played Claude Debussy's Claire de Lune.
Claire de Lune de Debussy. Yes, I love that. And find my equilibrium in between music and teaching and searching and seeing everybody from the little world of the symposium. That will be my greatest pleasure.
I'd like to set up something here as well, similar. You know that
Yes.
Because I think here in Limerick, during World War II in particular, here in Limerick, not during World War II, but 1903, Catholic priest Father Cray incited violence towards the tiny Jewish community. It became known as a pogrom, even though no one was killed. Violence, destruction, damage to property, and people felt that they had to leave, and they left. And since then, I suppose within 100 years, Limerick was one of the only counties in Ireland, one of the few counties to refuse to boycott Israel. And Limerick is I received a civic reception and a civic honour for my research from Limerick, for my research on childhood and for the interviews I do. And I just thought that within 100 years, we have painted, you know, some people, when they think of Limerick, they hear pogrom towards the Jews, but I'd like it to be known for the reverse. And in 100 years, so much has happened, and we have become the defender, if you like, when we refused to sanction Israel, and when our council refused to sanction Israel. And my reception, I felt, was some way towards, wow, things changed, you know, in a city and in a people. And why can't the whole world change? Why can't we learn?
We need to start again and again and again and teach to children, try to work the notion of peace, love, of course, tolerance. All those values have to be taught to very young children. And there has to be reminders all the time.
But philosophy is taught in schools in France at a very young age.
Oh, not so young. It's in the class of baccalaureate. When people, the youngsters are 16, 17. So it's old. They could be philosophy at an early age. That would be very interesting.
I think it should be introduced at primary school, as primary level, in you know, even if it's just you know, Derrida and breaking down and deconstructing and all that. But because it teaches children to be critically think.
Yes.
And I think I worry that our ability to critically think is dying out. People want this is either the answer or that's the answer. There's no, you know, this. Before we finish up, Cathy, what is your view on censorship within schools, and that certain schools refusing to allow certain lectures in because they have what they term as views that they might not agree with? I am of the view that we should listen to people, whether you disagree with them or not, and critically analyze what they're saying, find out why they believe that way, and argue with them. And I think that comes from having a background in philosophy, in a sense, that I think that schools that don't teach critical thought, we're breeding or rearing a nation of future adults who won't be able to critically think. They just want to take in what they agree with.
Yeah.
They don't want to take in what they disagree with and argue.
We don't have much censorship here.
Yeah.
There's pedagogic freedom in schools, in public schools at least. And it's basic, yes, to develop the critical mind. Otherwise, you can have any ideology, you can do whatever you want with people. I think that children are little adults. They can be confronted to problematics coming from the world of adults.
Yeah.
They should be. Otherwise, they will be children all their lives. Some are. And they are vulnerable. They are afraid. They don't develop their courage. We have to be brave also, and to try and make things as well as possible, but teach every possible topic that will develop their critical mind.
That's exactly true, because America now, you see all this tearing down of statues and trying to get rid of Little House on the Prairie, and trying to remove Dr. Seuss, and instead of because it's considered racist, and yet instead of just sitting down and discussing Dr. Seuss in school, or discussing Little House on the Prairie in the context of race, in the context of otherness, in the context of hospitality, or in the context of understanding or compassion.
Yes, and this movement should not forget that things develop in a certain context. And when people made the Little House in the Prairie, they did not have bad thoughts at the back of their heads. They did not have bad thoughts, but you have to comment what you see, and you don't have to suppress everything that exists. You cannot suppress history because you don't like it.
You can't. You just can't erase history and just block it. It happened, and we have to discuss it so that it doesn't happen again. Yeah. Well, Cathy, thank you so very much for being my guest today.
Thank you very much, Mary. I wish you all the best. I still want to tell you congratulations for your beautiful work. And the lecture you made last week will be published in the next book. And we are waiting your lecture from last week. Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Cathy.
Merci, Mary.
De rien. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.